Hi guys, welcome to Better Bodies. This is James. For those that are doing the back class, I promised you that I'd give you some homework, some stretches to do. The first stretch I'm going to give you is just a stretch which is going to open your hip. Now, if you've seen a physiotherapist, they might have given you this stretch, and this stretch we tend to give out for people that are getting sciatic pain, some pain that's running down kind of the side of the glutes here. And the way we normally ask you to perform this is you lay on your back, you cross one leg over the other like this, and you pull this knee in, okay? Which gives all this around here a bit of a stretch. And as you can see, I'm having to open my hip this side, yes? The problem is, when you do this stretch, when you pull that knee in, your lower back will kind of roundin a little bit, and if you've got herniated discs, that's not going to help things much. It's just going to push that bulging disc in the direction of the nerve. So I'm going to give you a different option, something where you can keep your back a little bit more straight. For this, it's very similar to what I'm doing right now. Okay, I've got one foot on the floor. Okay, I'm on the side of the bed here. I've got one foot on the floor. I bring this leg up on the bed here. I'm quite good with this. I can open my hip quite a lot. For some of you, you might find that your knee's quite high up like this. If that's the case, you can take something like a pillow and pop it this side, so you've got a bit of support underneath this leg, okay? If you are a bit more supple, you might be able to get this leg a little bit further down, okay? So we're opening that hip. With the second leg, what I like about this stretch is with this second leg, because it's on the floor, you can actually upright the body a little bit more and keep this nice straight back when you do it. Now, to deepen the stretch, when I showed you me laying on my back, part of that stretch was getting this leg and this chest a bit closer together. Now what you would do is do this in a seated position. So you've opened the hip, we've got this stretch around here, you're up nice and tall, and rather than bringing the leg to the chest, we're bringing the chest towards the leg. Okay, I'm going to get that same stretch that I had when I was laying on my back, bringing my leg towards my chest. But instead of rounding my back, I've got a nice straight back when I do it. Yeah? Some people will take that a step further. This leg here, they might walk it back a little bit further, so they get a little bit of a stretch into this hip as well. It's a little bit like the pigeon pose when you do a yoga stretch. So it's up nice and tall, the hip is open, and you take that fold kind of forwards. We're not going so deep that we're rounding our back, okay? You just take it forwards until you feel like a nice stretch into that hip and around the bum this side. When you take that forward, when you're trying to come forwards, we're not coming forwards towards the foot, I'm not coming towards the knee, I'm trying to come right in the middle, okay, of where the shin bone is, taking that forwards. And then I'd go to the other side of the bed, or I'd turn around this way, and I'll do the other side, okay? So I hope that makes sense. So that's a really good stretch for opening the hip. Another stretch you can do if you're real supple, okay, you've built up some flexibility here, is you would bring your feet together like this. And in the beginning you might need to kind of lean back slightly, okay? If you are leaning back on the wall or the headboard behind you, like the previous stretch, we don't want to be rounding our back, okay? So what you might do is just make sure that you've got a couple of pillows underneath your back so you've got that support. And then you might just use the hands just to help those knees down, okay? Get those knees a little bit closer to the bed so you really feel everything opening in the hip. In time, what we'd want to do, keeping a long spine, is to lean forwards like this. You don't have to do it on the bed, you could do it on the floor with your back against the wall if you feel that your mattress is a bit soft. I'm laying on all my duvet and everything. If I was doing this every day, I would just probably sit on the mattress instead of the duvet because it's quite soft. So you take that lean forwards, just the same. Okay, nice straight back. Early days you might be leaning back, and like I say, just weighing everything down. If both of those options are just too difficult, your third option would be just to lay flat on your back. So you lay right back and you just work on your knees parting like this. And you might just hold this for a couple of minutes, and in time, those hips will open further. Okay, so a couple of options there for that stretch. So give those a little bit of a go. I'm going to pause the video, and I'll show you your next stretch. So the next stretch is a hip flexor stretch. So we're stretching the muscles down here that connect onto your thigh bone, they wrap over the pelvis, they run to the back of the pelvis, and then connect into the lower vertebra of the spine. And the reason why we want to stretch these muscles out is if they're a bit stiff, they will tend to pull the pelvis down at the front, which in turn will arch your back and start to strain your back. If they're also short, because they connect into that lower part of your spine, they're only going to pull that spine, okay, which isn't going to feel too good either. So we want to stretch these muscles out. So to stretch the muscles out, you need to get that knee back behind the hip. So what you do is you can do this in standing, okay, 1 foot forwards, your second knee back like this. I'm on the ball of the foot behind me. I've got a little bend in that back knee. Once you've got this kind of split stance, you might want to hold on to the wall, that's fine. But once you've got that split stance, what we want to do, we know that when these muscles are being stretched, when they're being pulled, they're going to pull you in this position. So to stretch them further, you need to get your back to push out in this direction, and we'll do that with a pelvic tilt. So I need you to try and round your back when you're in that lunge. So 1 foot forwards, you can have the hand on the wall for support. Second foot back, as far back as you can manage, okay, a little bend in the knee. Then you create that pelvic tilt, and you'll start to feel a bit of a stretch here. You're staying upright. To deepen the stretch, you just bend that front knee some more, getting that knee a little bit closer to the wall. Once more, I feel that stretch, yeah? You hold this stretch and the previous stretch for about 1 minute, 2 minutes, and then you'll change leg. What you could do is just lunge into it, hold for 2 seconds and slightly come out of it, and then just dip in and out of that tension if you wanted to. So that's a great stretch. A second option for this is actually doing it in a lowered position. So you'd come down, okay? You'd still have a wall or a stool beside you for support. I start with this knee above this ankle, and then I want to walk this back knee as far back as I can. So I'll bring my hands down and I'll shimmy this knee all the way back so I start to feel a stretch here. I rest the top of my foot down. Here I might just create that pelvic tilt and squeeze my bum, and I can feel a bit of a stretch. To deepen the stretch, I keep that pelvic tilt and I just bring my hands up a little bit like this. I continue to keep a flat back as I come higher up like this. And then once I'm upright and I've flattened my back, I've got a good squeeze in my bum and my thigh, to deepen the stretch, I just bend that front knee some more. So I'm getting this knee away from this knee. This is a deeper version of the same stretch. Okay? So that's another one you can have a little go at. It's a great hip flexor stretch. So there's 2 stretches there. I'm going to pause the video, I'll move on to our third stretch. So stretch number 3 is for the hamstrings, the back of the legs. If these muscles are short, because they're connecting to the pelvis, when we bend down, rather than having this nice straight back as we bend down, because when we bend down, our hamstrings will lengthen. As soon as they've reached full length, what will happen from that point is you'll start to bend your back to get the rest of the way down. So when you pick things up, you'll be more inclined to round in your back. What we want is real strong, long hamstrings, so as we take that bend forwards, we can keep a straight back as we lift something up from the ground. So to stretch the hamstrings, there's a few different options. The option I'd like you to do, they call this the elephant walk. You start with a little bend in your knee, yeah? You try and get your tailbone to lift up towards the ceiling like this. You bring your hands down on anything. This is the bed, but I do this on the steps at home. I tend to place my hand on the second step at home. I start to take a fold, keeping just a small bend in the knee, keeping a straight back, and then I get to about there, I can now feel a stretch into the back of my leg. Yeah. From here, keeping this tension, I'm just going to pull the knees back to get that deeper stretch, hold for 2 seconds, and then let my knees bend again. So straighten and bend. And then if I can manage this, and I feel okay with it, I try to bend my knee, to take the stretch away, take a deeper fold, keeping my tailbone lifted, and then from that position, I do the same again. Pull the knees back, try and keep that tailbone lifted. Feel that stretch into the back of the knees. If you start to do this though, look at my bum, if I start to do a bit of that takes the stretch completely away, okay? But also if I'm stretching with a rounded back like this, it's going to put pressure into the back again. You're going to feel it more into your back because your back's having to work to keep that tailbone lifted. But when you start to round in your back, you're going to be pushing your discs in the direction of the nerves, okay? So try to keep that tailbone lifted up high so you keep a nice strong back. So you're doing two things here really. You're stretching out your hamstrings, but also you're getting these muscles to get stronger at lifting that tailbone up as these hamstring muscles start to lengthen. So I hope that makes sense for you. Just go deeper and deeper and deeper in time. So that's the first stretch I give you. If that's just too difficult for you, another option is that you take something like a stool, like this. Okay, if you sit on it, so really easy stretch this one. You start tall, you take a leg out in front. Now this leg is straight. You try to have your toes so they pull back rather than point away. You lengthen the spine, it's super important, nice long spine, and then you hinge forwards from the hips. Okay, I can feel that stretching to the back of the leg. I might just hold for a moment, come out of it, and then go that little bit deeper. Okay, but the same thing here, when you're stretching the legs like this, we don't want to be rounding the back. You stay tall when you do it. So all these stretches, spending a minute or two on them. Yeah, so that that there is your third stretch. I'm just going to pause the video again. So we've had our hamstring stretch, okay, stretching the back of the leg. We've got our hip flexor stretch. We have the stretch where we open the hip, yes? In our classes I'll give you some more options for these stretches as well. Now I'm going to give you a stretch which inwardly rotates the hip instead, okay? So for this, you lay on your back and you want your feet so they're about shoulder width apart, and when you're laying flat on your back, you'll bring your knees over to one side. So just have a little look at this. So I'm laying on my back, my head and shoulders down, my arms out to the side so they feel comfortable. I'm going to take my knees over to the side here so I can think about this leg inwardly rotating. This is the leg I'm thinking about. Now this foot, if I just place it on top there, I can use this leg, this foot, just to pull this knee a little bit further down into more inward rotation. I get a little bit of a stretch into my back as well. Once I've spent a little bit of time there, I come back up, get my feet to where they started, I reset my pelvis, I take my knees over the other side, trying to get this knee down, second foot comes on top, and then you start to pull this down a little bit further. Okay? And then that's that stretch. If you're getting quite supple there, you can take it into more inward rotation by starting with your foot higher. So what I will do is I take something like this cushion and I put my foot on it, okay? Just as I did before, but now my foot is a bit higher up. So now when I take this knee over to the side, I can actually hit a little bit more inward rotation because this foot is higher up. I'm having to rotate more to get that knee down towards the ground there. I hope that makes sense. So that is your fourth stretch. We've got a fifth stretch. For the fifth one, I want you rounding your back. I want you having that range of movement and working on that, especially if you're stiff. But what I don't want you to do is to put yourself in a position where the back roundens and we start to then put weight in your spine at the same time. That's where we might have a problem, okay, where things have been pulled on a little bit too much. So we're going to practice rounding our back and arching our back as well. But we're going to do it in all fours, on all fours. So we've got our hands, knees and feet like this, knees underneath the hip, hands underneath the shoulders, legs hip width apart. I tuck my tailbone under. You can see that I'm rounding my lower back. And then I lift my tailbone up to arch my back, just like that. So I'm just thinking of a nice pelvic tilt. Normally when people do this stretch, they really get the upper back rounding, so they push with their arms like this, so the upper back roundings, but quite often they don't actually round in the lower back stays flat still. So I want to kind of forget about the arms and just work on the pelvic tilts, getting that tailbone to tuck under, separate the lower joints of the spine and then lifting that tailbone up. To get a deeper stretch, you just bring your hands a little bit closer to your knees, okay? As your bum starts to sit a little bit closer towards your heels, your tailbone's going to want to round in anyway. So you can bring that bum that little bit closer towards your heels and then tuck that tailbone under. You get a deeper stretch into your lower back, okay? And then you might want to walk the hands forwards as you lift that tailbone up. So a little step back and tuck under, or you could just work the whole thing from this range. If you know that you're terrible at rounding the back, I'd have my hands back here a little bit more and just work on getting that lower back to round in. If you know that you're terrible at lifting the tailbone, I might just have my hands a little bit further forwards and make that focus on getting that tailbone to lift. You see that I'm not very good at this one, okay? Get that tailbone to lift in repetition without being too aggressive. So you just round in and extend, and you spend just a couple of minutes doing that, just teasing the body into that nice and slowly. So those are your stretches. Alongside this, okay, I'd be doing my core, my deep core exercise. This is the one where you lay on your back, your tummy pulls in tight, you keep a neutral spine, and you lighten your feet a little bit. So this might be just lightening both feet a touch, or it might be just lifting a foot, bringing it down, and then changing sides. So when you're doing this at home, what you do is you have your feet on the floor, but I'm just showing you on the cushion so you can kind of see what I'm doing with my legs. The head and shoulders would rest down. I know I'm looking at you right now, but the head would rest down. Rather than your feet resting heavy into the ground, you try and lighten the feet a little bit, okay? Tummy pulls in tight, neutral spine. And you just breathe. You keep your feet light, you keep your tummy pulled in, you continue to breathe, and you try and do that for 4 or 5 minutes. If you want to take it that step further, you lift that foot, you bring it down, you lift the other foot, you bring it down, you keep the feet hip width apart, there's no shifting of weight, there's no leaning to the side, anything like that. You're keeping that very, very small arch in your lower back. So there's that. So we've got our stretches every day, spending 5 minutes doing this every day, and then finally we're practicing that deadlift that we spoke about previously. This is the one where you've got your hands on the wall. I'm just going to pause the video and I'll just demonstrate this for you.